Hi, Paul Ryan from Ryan Farming Machinery. We're based in Horsham, Victoria, and I'm second generation of the Ryan manufacturing. I'm here to explain the evolution of tillage and seeding, and from the time it originated with tines through to the no-till farming today. If you look at this machine here, well over 100 years old, and this is the tines that were used on a drawn machine through the gear there. Not much spacing, but just to explain where it's come from. As you will see, no pneumatic tyres, and a good old Wimmera, no doubt a Wimmera thing for the Wimmera, a scraper for the metal wheel. We wander down here, and you can see in the background there's various types of machines, tillage equipment. There's a good old classic here, which is a horse drawn, which had a spring tine on its gear. If you can take a good look at that, you can see the seat where the farmer would have sat once upon a time on that seat there, whipping the horse. We wander down. The next model, you see a pneumatic tyre here. We'll keep wandering down through this equipment, and then we'll take you through, right through to where the Ryan equipment is today. But here again, the spring tine gear. Couldn't tell you which brand. It's probably Ackland's. And we go on to what they used to call the Ackland bar, or the Ackie bar. There'll be thousands of these in Australia. Typical old seeding, a wide point for cultivate, cutting the weeds. Obviously no chemicals in those days. Light frame, and we wander onto it. You see the pneumatic tyres through, and I see notice there's only a 2-row cultivator. Then we move on to one of the later Ackie bars with the old spring tine, and there'll be thousands of these around in Australia. And we'll move on to after this machine where the Austin Ryan come out with the spring release tine. Here I am at the Warrickybill Museum, right in the heart of the Wimmera Plains, and a lot of equipment here, previous seeding and tillage equipment. And something that's quite unique here is showing that where this machine is not new today. This old girl here, have to be 100 years old, showing that that there was this seeding going on well before the tines come on. As you can see, no pneumatic tyres, an old wooden seed box, and I bet you there was no chemicals in those days to spray any weeds out. So no-till seeding might be as new as we thought. We'll wander through and have a look at the old Ryan scarabator that's here. Well, actually that model is the yellow model, which is called the Ryan, which is called the scarabator. So in the Wimmera, in this area, there was the likes of Ryans, Acklands, Gasons, Smales come on later seen in manufacturing. So a lot of manufacturing came out of the Wimmera for tillage and seeding. We were at the old original scarabator. This was first began at the farm 17 miles north of Warrickybill at a place, Beulah, and Austin thought of a first spring release wide line cultivator. It was an extension on from the old Ackie bar with the spring tine and the shearer, which had the spring tine field span. So the unique features of this was Austin had a centre pivot, a patented 7 centre pivot down the machine, so it could flex down to your crab holes, melon holes, gill guys, and that was the secret to the scarabator. Every other machine, if you look forward to the old Ackie bar in front, you'll see that there's no pivot in the middle. So you could have a wide machine and still get down inside your gill guys. Austin's first tine was a straight tine. You can see here it's only a little spring, probably wouldn't be a 100-pound breakout. So the straight tine, then he made a toolbar in the early 70s to put straight tines, various shaped tines, to find out which tine carried the least trash. So then he brought out the Ryan scarabator in the yellow and green model with the bend in it that actually carried less trash. So we still carry on that shape today. But these little machines here, the old scarabator was only about 20 inches between rows, fold it up, tilt, lift it up, and you can push the wings around to keep your width down for transport. So there's a bit of history. There, only the 3 tyres on the machine, 3 wheels. I'm at the front of the Scarabator now. As you can see, with the Scarabator, there's a hydraulic ram. So hydraulics came in the late 50s. Tractors with their hydraulics. So the hydraulic ram fitted in here, and you could tilt lift it. The name of the Scarabator came from because you only had a field span cultivator, and it turned in, so Austin could see a need for a sort of a heavy duty cultivator. So he called the words Scara, means Scarif, short for scarifier, and Invader is cultivator shortened. So that's where the word Scarabator came from. So anyway, we'll move on to the next stage of the Ryan progress of innovations. Now I've moved on to up near our farm where it first began, the Ryan Scarabators, and Austin had a couple of original staff members, and one's still here with us. And I'll hand it over to him how it first began, because I was a bit small at the time, and that Max has got the Max Golder. He'll have the story how it all began, the Ryan Scarabator.
Yeah, well, we were looking, or Dad was looking for a cultivator of some description, better than the Ackland Bar. Heard that Austin Ryan was making the Bowl and John Scarabator, so we went to see him to have a discussion about it. And he was actually starting to make the new one, which was the beginning of the Ryan Scarabator. So he said to us if we helped him build it, we could have it on trial. So we did. Dad and I started there and helped him build it. Took it to the open show, was the first display, and it all led on from there. After that, got a lot of interest in it, and I remember Austin buying enough steel to build 5 machines. So we built 5 machines at once, just Dad and I and Austin. And yeah, they were all sold by the time they were built, and it continued on from there.
And you got the number 6 or 5, 5th one, didn't you?
Number 5 we took
in that production line.
We were there to get number 1. Other people got in before us and wanted it more desperate than what we did, so we finished up with number 5. I sold it in later years, but I now wish I'd have kept it, so it's a bit of a historic thing. Yeah.
The first machine, I believe, Max went to Hook Brain, wasn't it?
Yeah, Cold Brain. Hook's father, Cold Brain. Yeah, he wanted it right or wrong. The first one was painted blue with white wheels that represent Bueller, denote Bueller. And people weren't too happy about having a Bueller machine, so went to green with yellow wheels.
Australian colours.
Yeah, Australian colours, yeah.
One of the stories I always remember, Max, you talked about my mum, when Austin did all his thinking.
Sometimes we'd get there of a morning, Dad and I, 8:30 or something, and yeah, your mum would, we'd go inside for coffee at 10 o'clock, and she'd say, well, Austin never went to bed last night, he was out in the workshop, being a gyro gear loose, mucking around with things and try to improve the inventions all the time. Yeah, that's what he was forever doing. He was always changing ideas and coming up with new ideas. Dad and him had a fair few discussions. Dad told him a lot of things wouldn't work, and some of them did, some of them didn't.
I can remember your dad on the old hacksaw, smoking his rollies against the hacksaw, so that was my reflection of the old beginning of this Ryan Scarabator being made. The first one was, so we went from the yellow to green, yellow with tension springs. That was probably about 71, 72, Max, when Austin started building them on the farm?
Yeah, about 1972 it was when we started there. And then I lived in the old house on the farm there from 1973 to 74. And it was down the workshop a lot, day and night, Saturdays and Sundays. Seemed to get roped into things. Yeah, I remember Dad sort of had it all worked out. There's so many lengths of steel for 5 machines, and with the offcuts it all fit in a 20-litre drum when he finished cutting them up with hacksaw. So, it was
no punching shears then?
Pretty good then, yeah, no punching shears then, no.
Then we moved on to the compression spring model in about 77, 78. Probably 77 when the yellow air seeder model came out with it. So we'll leave it there on a nice 36-degree day in the Mallee here, and middle of harvest. and let Max get back to loading the hay.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Here I am where Austin first started building the scarabrators on the Ryan farm. That actually has been in the Ryan since the late 1800s, and Austin was born here in the 1920s, 1925, and this is where all his developments began. And this shed here, a little 40 by 20 shed, probably a 60 by 20 shed, lucky to be 60. And the first lot of scarabrators were made here for the first year. I think there's about 50 scarabrators in total were made in this shed before we moved to the factory in Warrick in 74. So 71, 72, also 72s in here where the first Ryan scarabrators began. The beauty of what he had here on his own farm, he could build them there and go and test them out here. In the field or back for, it was a couple of thousand acres. We're looking due east down here through the Ryan farm, out past that shed. There's a couple of thousand acres. So that's how it all started. We'll just move on to the next stage of the Ryan manufacturing innovation. Here I am with the Ryan scarabator model, with the famous tilt lift again. This model was started beginning in the 1972 to end up tension spring model to about 1977, 78 until the compression spring model came out. This model is apparently about a couple of thousand of these built out of that factory in Warrickybill. Again with the tilt lift, the centre pivot, and the famous Ryan colours of green and yellow. This obviously tilted up, easy for changing points or clearing trash, and easy to fold. Here the wings folded up. This is what we called an 18-foot centre, and that was the Ryan scarabator. Well, here I am at the west of Brim in Victoria, right on the Wimmera Mallee, not far, about to 5 or 6 miles west of our Ryan farm. This is the second stage of the Ryan scarabrators in the green and yellow colours. So as I said before, we went from the yellow to as a scarabator, then the yellow and green model, a Ryan scarabator. This is then come out in 77, the compression spring. So we had a tension spring model. Then in 77 we brought this model out with a vertical spring. And we called it a trash evader. The trash evader is a heavier shank and it's got a scarifier point. So the idea was that staging spacings it handled more trash. Again, it had the tilt, the famous tilt lift. Again with the pivot in the middle, so the frame could also flex through the crab holes and melon holes and gill guides. So this old machine's an old girl. The wings have obviously been taken off. You can see the pivots here. Pivots for the wings. The wings are gone, but for the sake of this story, we're just showing you the green and yellow Ryan scarabators. And the farmer tells me he's still using it. Anyway, we'll go and have a next step. We'll have a look at the next model, what we brought through after this model. One of our latest Ryan cultivated air seeder models called the Ryanair Drill. I started building these in early 90s, mid 90s to the later mid 2000s. This was what we called the Ryanair Drill. It was the Ryan concept air seeder, 2 rollers that feed into a Venturi system. This model's a deep banding, which we were pretty renowned for our deep banding system. So it's got 3 hoppers, so triple banded you'll see through here. So again, we still kept with the 3 rows, and but then the Ryan shank, you'll see that it's still got the Ryan self-cleaning shank, and the double spring, a 19mm spring with a 13mm spring with large flotation tyres. So this is one of the later ones that models we built, and before we went into just concentrating on retrofit discs, tines and press wheel. As you'll see up the back, speaking of which, got the coil press wheels, press harrows on the back, another one of Austin's inventions. The concept of that is that it self-cleans and in a level or press wheel, depends how you set the angles. before Austin passed away, he believed that was one of his best inventions. I'll leave it with that. Thank you. So there it is, the history of the Rhine developments and innovations over the last 60 years, from the tines to the discs to the latest retrofit no-till gear that we produce, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you.